everyone. Welcome. Man, I swear I have missed you all this week. This week normally we're here for 5 days. Every month we do a 5-day challenge. And July and August we decided to mix it up a little bit, do a 1 day. So first of all, just welcome you. We're so happy that you're here. We know that you could be a lot of places. Today's a Tuesday here in California. It's 10 a.m., whatever time zone you're zooming in from. We're so blessed that you're here. We know that, there's sometimes what happens in our world is industries change, disruptions occur, right? We've seen it in the ride sharing business. Remember when Uber came along? And they completely disrupted how families get around, right? My parents always teased me and said, never get in the car with a stranger. And now it's very common knowledge to have a stranger roll up to the side of your house and, you put your life in their hands, right? We saw it. Think about something as simple as getting a cup of coffee, right? I would text, I would call my friend, let's go down to our local cafe, local donut shop. I just sent a message to a friend today and I said, hey, let's meet at our Starbucks. Starbucks came along and they changed how people just go and get a cup of coffee, right? We are really excited to share with you how we are changing the way that financial information is given to families, it's given to businesses. We know that products and services are better than they've ever been, and yet many families are being left behind financially. This is not a political venue, by the way, here, but this is a venue where we believe there is a good plan for your life. The lens that I look at life through, by the way, is the Jesus lens. I will tell you that you will hear about my Jesus as the more you get to know me. Whatever faith lens that you look at life through, I want to just invite you to believe and borrow my belief. Maybe if you don't believe it yourself, believe that there's tremendous power when you partner with your higher power, whatever you call that. Whether it's God, whether it's the universe, whether it's community, whether it's our fellow man, right? There's tremendous power when you do that. So this is just an example. We have a couple of our Kingdom Wealth specialists, my team here, these brilliant group of people that are going to be sharing their genius with us. This is an example of banding together as people, as communities, as leveraging. Leverage is my word of the year, by the way. Anyone else have a word of the year, by the way, that they pick a word of the year? My word this year is leverage. And it's a great example of how we can really leverage the skills, the abilities, the talent, the stories of others to share with other people and make an impact. So you're going to be hearing from all of these beautiful people, Debbie, Marianne, Scott. I'm so happy to have you guys here. We're going to bring you up to the stage in a little bit, but let's get started today. And I want to invite you to consider a time when it was a July, maybe it was a time long ago where you were in a happy place, you were a joyful place. Maybe it was a time in your life where you were having a bit of a struggle, a bit of a challenging time. And I want to invite you to remember back to a July. I want to introduce you to someone very, very special in my life. This is my sweet mother. This is Sue. My mom was one of those people that you can't see them clearly right now, but she's got 4 glasses of champagne in her hand. Okay. We were at a wedding, a family wedding, and this picture, I love this image because my mother was one of those people that lived life to the fullest. Her glass was not ever half empty. It was overflowing. Does anyone have anyone in their lives like that? I just want to have you get to know my mother, but I want you to think about a July in the past that you had. Who were you with? How did you feel? Were there goals that you created for yourself? that you knew that if you actually found maybe the right people, maybe you gained the right skills or the right knowledge, perhaps you leverage the right tools. Imagine, I want you to just imagine for a moment, if you did like my mother did in her life, if you partner with your higher power in your finances, in your business, in your life, what you can actually accomplish 12 months from now is pretty spectacular. This week, today we're going to talk about, we're going to introduce you to our formula. It's called the Kingdom Wealth Formula. And we talk about this formula. By the way, this is a trademarked formula by my mentor. Anyone have mentors in your life that you would not be where you are without those mentors? I know every single one of us has this as part of our story. I'm very blessed to be in partnership with an incredible man named Pedro Adeo. Many of you know Pedro, and he has implemented across the nation in every single state. It's growing. We are disrupting the financial industry, and we're so excited to do that. Anyone think maybe there needs to be some disruption in the financial industry, perhaps? Do we know maybe any families that are being left behind financially? So we're gonna share with you the Kingdom Wealth Formula today, which the first step in the formula is what we consider protection first. Okay, now protection first can mean a lot of things, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. Protection first can be one of the simplest forms. When I think about protection, I am a licensed life and health professional. So first thing that I think about is life insurance. That's kind of the fundamental foundation of the Kingdom Wealth Formula. Okay, life insurance, in my opinion, and I think you'll ask any financial professional, it's actually the highest form of leverage that you can buy, right? You can purchase life insurance for pennies on the dollar. Life insurance is one of those things also that protects your wealth. A lot of people don't think of it like that. Debbie, I know you had Chris Noggle on your show a couple months back. Chris is one of the people that I've learned about Protection First from. And what I love about Protection First is it really, really levels the playing field for any family. You know, there's nothing that can ever replace the loved one in your life, of course, but you absolutely have the power to replace what these two hands can produce for your family. Life insurance, to me, you know, I have a very personal story around life insurance. I had, a rough chapter in my life. I know many of us have had red chapters. For me, it was about, the slide, I need to update it. I realize it's 21 years ago now. My middle son is 21 years. I found myself a single mom. I was very unexpectedly on my own. I had this little 3-month-old and this 3-year-old, and my husband was gone, and he had been the one that handled all of our finances. So for me, this was a chapter where I realized I needed to get smart about money. Isn't it interesting how when you go through a rough chapter in your life, for me personally, that's also when God has opened many, many doors that if I've been brave enough to walk through, I've actually been able to persevere. It's the refiner's fire that I've gone through. Debbie and we're going to get to hear an incredible refiner's fire story, talk about refiner's fire. So I want to share with you, that is actually where the seeds of what we do now started. Never would I have dreamed that would be true. But that's when I decided to get personal about my finances. Any Dave Ramsey alumni by chance out there? Dave Ramsey, he's a very prominent financial coach in the industry. Now, Dave is really great, I think, at helping people not be poor. Now, I don't think he does a really good job with helping people build wealth. And that is what we are here to do. We are excited to help you build wealth in your life. But what he did share with me is really fundamental purpose around getting clear about what you have in your hands, right? Does it make sense? In the Kingdom Wealth formula, the formula is protect, earn, and multiply. Now, does it make sense to earn and multiply if you haven't first laid the foundation of protection? So when I first started down this journey, it was one of those things where I had insurance coming out, what, I didn't know actually what I had. And so that's the first challenge that I want to give you all is, do you have protection first in place? Protection first could be life insurance. Protection first can also be something, for example, around your income. For example, when COVID hit, how many of us had a single source of income? I know there's a lot of business owners here that have multiple sources, but the majority of our world had a single source of income. And one of our great mentors, Scott and I, we have this amazing mentor in our lives, Laurel Langmeyer. Many of you might know Laurel. Laurel talks about, I love one of her quotes. She says that, Christopher Columbus did not discover this great country, so we could be all a bunch of employees living paycheck to paycheck, right? The wrong side of the cash flow quadrant, she likes to share. And isn't it interesting? Imagine what COVID would have been like, my friends, had there been an additional income that every family had, right? We have a spare tire. We have a spare, a lot of families have a spare phone. They have spare everything, and they have insurance on everything too. But how many of them have a backup income? There's a lot of talk in wealth circles around having 7 income streams. And I personally didn't really ever understand this concept. I was in corporate America for decades. Now, granted, I was very well paid, but I didn't have any idea the beautiful benefits of having additional income streams. I didn't have any idea about the ways that we could save our hard-earned dollars, our taxes, by being a business owner, by having the right entities in place. Scott's going to share a little bit more about that later today. So, my point is, friends, one of the next steps in the Kingdom Wealth formula is how to earn and multiply. We're going to share with you later today. We're going to have our Chief Strategy Officer Curtis jump on and share with you more about one of our platforms. We are passionate about entrepreneurship. We are passionate about financial literacy and raising the financial IQ of women, especially so that we can make a generational impact on our next generation. Raise of hands for those of you that think they could teach our kids a little bit more about money in school. Isn't it crazy how much they don't teach our kids about money in school? My children, I think they probably know more about how money works than most financial advisors out there, actually. Which, by the way, did you know that the average financial advisor, I would love for you to put in the chat for a second, if you were to guess how much the average financial advisor makes, what would you guess that would be? Anyone have any guesses? Anyone want to put in the chat? Scott, you got it. $80,000. So isn't it interesting? We are trained literally to go to work, go to school, get a good job, sign up for whatever 401k, 403b, 457. These are just tax codes, by the way, my friends, program that the employee offers. And then we are supposed to get a financial advisor. I had 2 of them, by the way. And they're going to tell us how to build wealth. And yet they haven't built wealth themselves. Is there a little bit of an upside down world that we're living in, right? So, how about we actually empower ourselves to be the wealth creators that we were designed to be by simply raising our own financial IQ, by surrounding ourselves with people that actually are the experts in their chosen area of expertise, and leverage the skills that they have to help us all do better with our money. For us, we want to share with you a little bit about the platform when it comes to Earn and Multiply. We are so, so very blessed to be part of an organization called A Better Life. A Better Life is really more of a movement. When the financial crisis happened in 2008, there was a massive exodus when it came to the market. Does anyone remember the financial crash in 2008? I remember having a period where I didn't even want to open my statements. I was so concerned about what was going on. I had over $1 million in my retirement accounts in 2008. Literally just in a year, less than a year, it was down over 300,000. Anyone in the market during that time lost on average 40%. Now, my question to you is, did anyone ever say that that was a scam? Right? Isn't it crazy? They call that period of time from 2000 to 2009 vulnerable times. Absolutely, Don. They call it the lost decade, right? So when you think about how the typical way of building wealth is working for everybody, how is it really working? Right now, we're in the longest running bull market in the history of our lifetime. Do you think there might be a correction coming? This is what one of our big passions is, sharing with people how they can actually protect what they have. They do not have to participate in the loss that's coming. Whatever's coming, we don't know when it's coming. We don't know, we don't know exactly what will happen, but we know that it will eventually happen. We've seen, blips. We saw a dip in 2022. We just saw another one in April. Anyone that's in the market's been watching things closely. So I want to invite you to consider, does it make sense to leverage the systems that other people have built? We talk, one of my mentors is a Miss Sharon Lecter. Is anyone familiar with the cash flow quadrant that she wrote about with Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And most people in America are on the left side. This was me for decades, right? I was a highly paid W-2 employee. The only tax write-off I had was my home, pretty much, because I made too much money. And then I started to learn about the cash flow quadrant. This was about 6 years ago. And what I've learned about this can change lives generationally. Imagine if we start to, I know Debbie's got a big passion for our next generation. You've been working with teens, Debbie, for many years in this space. Imagine if we start actually teaching our children the principles of entrepreneurship. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe 90% of people should have a job. We know that the entrepreneurial journey is not for the faint of heart, but doesn't it make sense that 100% of us should have more than one income, should continue to build an asset class, a business that has a system that will pay us regardless of what we're doing, eventually enabling us to become an investor that does have passive income. There's obviously lots of ways to do this, but we believe there's really no better way than to have a business that's proven, that has a proven system where there is a need. You have to pick the business that there's a need for it. I find it interesting how many people in our country, I love how many people have hired themselves. I love how many people have become coaches, have become, sales experts. They train others in sales. What startles me, however, is how few people are making money as entrepreneurs. In fact, the 90% of entrepreneurs never make more than $50,000 a year. Are you surprised to hear that? And our team knows this. We sit down, this is the group that we work with most is entrepreneurs. And it doesn't have to be that way. By leveraging the systems that other people have built, And a great example of this is our Better platform. You're going to learn a little bit more about that later today. You can actually add the system to your business and leverage the skills that other companies have built to help the existing population that you have. So leveraging, protection of actually your income is a really big part of protection first. When it comes to protection, I also like to share what I believe is one of the biggest ways that we can protect our livelihood, our families, our joy, which is finding what you were called to do, what you were really truly called to do. One of the things that I love most about the entrepreneurs that I've met is that, first of all, it's an incredibly giving community. In corporate America, I was in sales, a very high pressure sales role. I was constantly being put on quotas, rising to the top. You'd hit one quota and then you'd be stretched to hit the next. And you were constantly in competition with others. You were pitted against one another. What I find so beautiful in the entrepreneurial space is how everyone that I've met personally, first of all, they have a generous nature of giving of their knowledge for sure. Now, obviously, there's some people that I've met that maybe that giving is really because they want to sell me something. I know we've all met people like that. Anyone maybe ever bought something that they really didn't need because it was a really good sales pitch? I know I have about 42 courses for $297 or $197 or $1497. Debbie knows, when we go through our financial assessment, that's one of the things that we encourage our students to do is really, when you're spending that money, those hard-earned dollars, is it something you really need, right? Is it something that if you implement today will do what it says it's going to do, first of all? And is it something you really need in your business right now, right? One of the things that I love also about the spirit of entrepreneurship and the community is what we can learn from other people, learn from other people's stories. And I'm going to bring my friend Debbie up to the stage right now because her story, there's people that you meet. Debbie's a great example of someone that I met through a fellow mentor that we both were introduced to, Dr. Greg Reed. I love this image of Greg. I keep it on my desk. Has anyone seen this one that he has?
I haven't even seen that one.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Greg was when I first started tiptoeing into the world of entrepreneurship, Greg was one of my first interviews that I did. I did a summit called Corporate to Entrepreneur, and I knew nothing about it. I had no clue who he was. I just thought, so I think my VA scheduled the interview. Little did I know that this guy has changed more lives than it's just crazy. And talk about just an incredibly giving nature. So Debbie and I had an opportunity to meet at a beach getaway. We were just talking about this down here in Southern California. And Debbie, when I met you, we instantly had a God connection. I'm excited to just allow you to share your personal story because your story really it resonated in such a big way with me, and it also is such an example of, I believe, you using that refiner's fire to get to a place where you are truly, in my opinion, it seems, doing what you're called to do. There's something really special about that. So I'm excited to have you here, my dear. Why don't you start? Just share with everyone a little bit about your backstory. Why don't we start there, and then you and I will have some fun. And I know you have some things to share as well.
I do. Thank you so much, Lisa. That was a beautiful introduction and a really beautiful presentation. I haven't even seen Lisa's presentation before, nor has she seen mine. So we are both taking a leap of faith presenting together, honestly, based on that God connection that we did feel when we met, and we only talked really about our personal lives, not so much about our business. So this is actually our first introduction to each other, really, honestly, with what we do in business. And yes, it's amazing to me that you've brought up the refiner's fire a few times, because that is my logo. My logo is a fire, and the story is ignition point, because that is that moment when you walk through that fire, and what determines whether you let it refine you or define you. Because there are people, I mean, I tell some of the stories. I'll tell my own in a second, but I also have a podcast. It's my favorite thing ever to learn from other people, because you can shave decades off of your learning curve, and a lot of heartache and a lot of loss of money learning from other people. And so my favorite way to do that is through podcast interviews with people who have achieved a certain level of success. So I know that they know what they're talking about. And one of the examples is a man named Dan Martell. He's a wildly successful entrepreneur now. He owns a company called SaaS Academy. He flew to our podcast on his own private jet and brought his own film crew with him to follow us around while we filmed him. That's how successful he is now. But he did not start out that way. His entrepreneurial journey started selling drugs on the street as a teenager. He was in jail so many times that when he would get out, they wouldn't say, "Do better, young man." They'd say, "See you again soon." And so, what was that? I want to know, well, what was that defining moment for you when you went from that guy to this guy who now makes a massive global impact improving people's lives? Because there are so many people that go through fire and they become angry and bitter, and yes, you're justified. It hurt. Someone hurt you. Someone betrayed you. You lost something. Somewhere along the line, we all walk through that fire. But what is that determining factor for people who choose to get better instead of bitter? Who, like I like to say, choose to let it refine you instead of define you. So that is my ignition point. And I want to ask you guys, I'm going to pull up, whoops. There we go. What yours is. I want to know, like, if a couple of you would just pop into the chat or unmute and tell me actually why you're here. I just want to hear from a couple of people why you're here so we can discuss that.
Why are we here, friends?
One
Because
person,
Lisa
one
told
brave
me
soul.
to be here. Lisa told me to be here.
A lot of times, surprisingly, that is the answer that I get when I ask this. And I want you to think about your why in all that you do, even just showing up. If you're here to support someone, oh, maybe there was a chat. Would you let me know? Because I just went to full screen. Will you let me know when there's a chat, if that's all right? Why you're here. Now, supporting someone.
We have to get more knowledge as an entrepreneur. We
There we go.
have need a new mindset, financial breakthrough. There's a lot of, I'm finding so many webinars I'm attending these days or speaking at. There's a lot of people seeking financial breakthrough,
Yeah, and I really resonated with your message about that, especially as we went through COVID. You were very limited on what you could and couldn't do if you did not have your own revenue streams, your own income sources. So I want you to think about your why in all that you do. It's your determining factor. So why are you here? If Lisa invited you, that's kind, yes, but what is your actual intention for coming? Those other answers were great. If you want to learn things or network with people that are going to then improve your life and the lives of those around you, that's going to be, have a much better outcome and objective than just simply showing up because someone invited you. Because 3 hours of your time is a lot, actually, to not have a true intention to change your life or someone else's. Most entrepreneurs do not calculate, you probably know this, their hourly rate. And so because they're just doing the things, thinking about marketing and revenue and profits and what is your time worth. Most people don't even realize that there are formulas out there to actually figure out what your hourly rate is. And oftentimes it can be close to $200 to $500 an hour, even in the startup range. And so if you think about being here for 3 hours, if your hourly rate is worth $500, it's costing you $1,500 to be here. So that's an expensive course you just bought. So you probably ought to have an objective of what to take away from this time together beyond just because Lisa invited you to, as kind and altruistic as that is. It cost you $1,500 to be here, or $600 to be here, or time with your children to be here, time with building your own business to be here. So I want you to think about that in those terms. And then why, really why you became an entrepreneur, because that is going to be the fuel that, you determine why you're here just now, but why you do every decision in life. So, did this not click? Oh. There we go. Oops, now I went the wrong way. Okay, well, all right. So I want you to think about, if I had a plank on the floor in front of you, imagine that we're all in the same room. If I had a plank on the floor in front of you, and it's 20 feet long and 6 inches wide, and I asked you to walk this plank, how many people would say yes? Probably usually everybody, right? I'm like, if I offer you $50 to walk across that plank on the floor, everyone is going to say yes. But if I take that same plank and I put it between two 20-story buildings, and I offer you that same $50 to walk across that plank, who is going to say yes to that? Nobody. Okay. So occasionally I have one adrenaline junkie in the room that will say yes to that. But if I tell you that plank that is between those two 20-story buildings is the only way to the other building that is on fire and your children are in that building, are you going to run across that plank? $50 or not, right? Everybody is walking across that plank at this point in time. And I want you to think about, when I said that, what you actually physically felt inside of you. There was an energetic shift called momentum, drive, fire, passion. And that was an imaginary scenario. So if you guys think about your why, your ignition point, that moment when you decided enough is enough, I'm going to forge my own way. I'm going to take classes like this one from Lisa so that I can educate myself to have 7 income streams, or I am going to launch my own business so that I can be in control of my destiny and my fate, not just my income, but my ability to be there with my children when I choose. So for me, that is why I do what I do. I because of my story. My ignition point was 12 years ago. I was a stay-at-home homeschooling mother of 6 and suddenly received a divorce notice with an immediate eviction notice. I didn't know that wasn't legal because it was on the law firm's letterhead that was handed to me with the divorce notice. So my husband had paid an attorney to write up a letter that said, if you're not off the premises immediately, you'll be arrested for trespassing. The bank accounts had been emptied out, so I couldn't get an attorney to tell me that wasn't legal, nor did I even have the wherewithal at that point in time. I just was so blindsided. I had to look at my 6 children and say, you've got 5 minutes to pack your most favorite things. We're never coming home. At that point in time, I had not developed a career. I got married right out of high school, so I had not gotten my degree either. So I could not even get a job that would cover daycare expenses for 6 kids, let alone our living expenses. So I had to learn how to be an entrepreneur out of desperation. And it was the long, hard road because I didn't have people like Lisa or Greg in my life. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know any entrepreneurs, but I knew I had a couple of skills. I knew that I was going to someday go to school to get my degree in psychology. Well, someday never came. Someday is not a day of the week. And so with again that circumstance, I was also unable to go to school because I had no one to watch my kids. I didn't even have anywhere to live. So I took the skills that I did have, knowing I was good at psychology. I had studied personal development like crazy since I was 12 years old. So I started to get some certifications for a little bit of money that was donated to me. I invested in myself as much as I could, and I got a certification, and I started charging people $85 an hour for some life coaching. And then I would add, and then I would save up and I would fly to Santa Barbara and I would go to this Tony Robbins and Chloe Maddanes strategic intervention training, and I would add the next one, and then I could charge a little bit more, and then I would save some of that and I would invest in myself again, and then I could take another training and I could charge a little bit more. And so I built my skills that way. But there are easier ways when you have mentors, coaches, training, resources. So now I have built a platform that provides a lot of that for entrepreneurs across all ages and stages, because that is my burning why. If I had known what I know now, it wouldn't have been such a long and hard road. It took us 3.5 years of bouncing around in other people's basements on welfare and church and state welfare before I could figure out how to make enough to get us our own place and start to get on my feet. So knowing your why, you don't have to journal it right now because I know we're short on time, and so I'm not going to take those breaks, but I want you to think about that later, that defining moment for you, that fire that you walked through, that you let refine you. Because just like that plank example, when the next challenge comes, if you can remember what that feels like to want to run across that plank to that burning building and save your children, because that is actually closer to reality than you realize. What does the future look like if you don't do that? For me, it wasn't just about desperately needing to make money because I couldn't even get enough at a regular job. It was also the need to be there with my kids. I have no one else around. My family lives in Idaho. I could not go live with them because he was also suing for custody, so I couldn't leave the state. And I didn't have 6 babies to pay someone else to raise them. I didn't want someone telling me I couldn't go to their soccer games because they were a 4 and I didn't get off at 6. And so that is my burning why. And I remember what that feels like, similar to that feeling of that wanting to run across that plank and save the kids in that burning building, because that's what my future looks like and feels like if I'm not in charge of it. Whoops. How do I go to the next one? There we go. Oh, am I going backwards? Oh, there we go. Sorry. I'm doing Canva instead of PowerPoint. There we go. Then defining your vision. Where do you want to go? So randomly going through life, other people are going to take that will for you if you don't decide to take your will. Like Proverbs says, where there is no vision, the people shall perish. And if you don't take the wheel and the driver's seat of your life, I guarantee you somebody else is going to. So if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So the next step in knowing your why in order to be successful in growing a profitable, sustainable, and scalable business is to define where you want that business to go so that you can start putting the next steps into place. The next step is to cultivate a growth mindset. We will see what we believe to be true, whether or not it is actually true. Everyone has experienced this with that new car syndrome. When you buy a new car, you suddenly see that car everywhere, right? And every single person has experienced this. And so it's not like that car magically appeared in the universe because Scott bought one. And so now God says, okay, now these cars exist all around you. It's because we have both a conscious and a subconscious mind. Our subconscious can pick up thousands of bits of information at any given point in time, but we would go crazy and all be like ADHD on steroids if we didn't have a filter for our conscious minds to reduce that to the top 20 to 40 bits of information that it deems important for your purpose and your life path. So when you buy that new car, suddenly your filter has decided, oh, that car's important now. I will now let that in my filter and I will notice it even though it was always there. Opportunities and solutions or problems and challenges are the same way. Whatever you focus on is what your mind will determine is important to see. So there are countless, infinite possibilities to increase profits, revenue streams, joint venture partners. I'm going to get into some of these here in a minute, but you won't see them if all you're focused on is recession, struggle, political debates, then that is all that you will see. Whatever we focus on expands. And if you cultivate a growth mindset that there is plenty of opportunity out there, there's plenty of business out there. If you cultivate a mindset that focuses on collaboration versus competition, then that is what you will see. Just like this car example. One of my first business events, I had 150 business owners in the room, and I'm a business coach. But two other business coaches helped fill that room for me because they have a collaboration mindset, not a competition mindset. And all of us had plenty of business because there is enough business for all of us if we have that kind of mindset. I don't need all 150 clients in my pipeline. I only need the ones that need what I am going to be working on and resonate with how I work. The other two teach very different things anyway. I am very specific on profits and revenue and leads and marketing. One of them is more specific on mindset and leadership, and the other one is more specific on scaling teams, like hiring your first VA and things like that. So we have different things, and it's really not about you, it's about who you serve. So knowing your why is enough to get you going through that fire when it comes. Knowing where you're going is how you will start to build the road to where you go. Having a solution, opportunity focused mindset is going to help you see the opportunities, but those things alone are not enough. This is where, I don't totally love things like The Secret or manifesting. They are actually true principles. We do reap what we sow. However, we also must have proven systems in order to get us to our goals. There is no amount of sitting in a garden chanting, "There are no weeds," that are going to make those weeds disappear. We must actually get up. We have to have the habit of taking action. Faith is also a principle of action. It's a principle of belief and action. But we have to have proven systems because there's also no amount of running east, chasing a sunset, that is going to get you to your goal. You have to know what works and what doesn't work. Again, this is why having classes like this, having coaches, mentors, other successful entrepreneurs around you who you can learn from and grow with, who have growth-oriented mindsets and systems and habits that are proven to be effective and successful, is going to get you to that goal faster. So let's talk about my favorite ways to help people build profits quickly in their business. I like to talk about profits rather than revenue because there are way too many people, when I dive into their actual numbers with them, they go to these networking meetings and kind of brag about doing $1 million in revenue this year. I said, but how much did you take home to your family? Because revenue doesn't feed your family. Revenue feeds your ego. Profits feed your family. And I have shown business owners how to do the same amount of profits as $1 million business with 75% or even 50% of the revenue by tweaking some of their internal systems based on proven processes. And so you might not brag about your $500,000 revenue as much, but if you have the same profit and you're working less hours for it, what really matters? You have more time and more money for your family. So how some of the proven systems that I like to share with people work, and I'm going to share 2 or 3 of them with you today, and I'll send everyone a book with all examples of all 12 if you'd like, is just thinking about the expression that people talk about. I don't know if you've heard this before, but if I offered you $1 million today or a penny that doubles every day for 30 days, most people, some people say, oh, I'd take $1 million right now because, I can invest with Lisa and a financial advisor. Well, if actually the penny doubling every day based on compounding adds up to over $5 million in 30 days. And so if you look at 12 key areas of your business, small, incremental, strategic, proven systems compound like that over time. So there's these 12 areas that I like to cover with business owners in the first 12 weeks. If I know it's kind of small, sorry, but even if we only got if I see these numbers in the middle, just a 1.4% increase in these 12 key areas would more than double their profits by the end of a year. Isn't that crazy how that compound effect works? But most business owners are especially entrepreneurs, leaving so much money on the table because they're really focused on getting their product or their service out to the market, and they just gotta get it out there, gotta make sales, gotta get that revenue, and they forget about all these other little tweaks that they can make that make a huge difference in the long run, which is why it's beneficial, just like your personal finances. Lisa's talking about having insurance and things like that, to have someone that knows what they're doing to help you work on your business instead of in your business. I'm going to give just a couple of case studies so you have an example, an applicable example of what this looks like for someone. So this is a restaurant that me and my team actually worked with. A nearby restaurant was offering a 25% discount on a $60 meal. The restaurant that we're working with, so they're next door, and we talked about discounting and the psychological effect that has on your customer. First of all, it produces immediate impression that your product or service is worth less because you're discounting. Second of all, if you think about a restaurant specifically, why do people go out to eat? Is it to save money? Do you go out to eat to save money? No. If you were wanting to save money, you would cook at home. You're going out to dinner for the ambiance, for the experience. So this is what we're going to do is we have them come up with the same price meal, but we include a bottle of wine and dessert, which gives a more of the ambiance, more of the experience that customers are actually going out to eat for. The restaurant that's offering the 25% discount is saving the customer $15. But at the second restaurant, the bottle of wine is listed on the menu for $25 and the dessert is listed for $16. So now the customer perceives that they're saving $37 instead of $15. And yet the $25 bottle of wine only costs the restaurant $8, and the $6 desserts are $1. So here's the breakdown of those two. As you see, the meal is the same price at $60. We go down to the profit margin is 50% for each of them. The cost to the restaurant here in restaurant A, the discounts, the cost is 25%. The cost to restaurant B that included the freebies was only $9. So over here, the discount cost the restaurant A 15%, but over here, it didn't cost them money, it made them more money. So their new profit is $21. And so the perceived value was only $15 on restaurant A, but the perceived value over here is 37. So it gives a much better, so that your customers are more satisfied because they also got wine and dessert for free, but they also perceive that they're saving even more money. So their profit margin was 40% higher than restaurant A by bundling instead of discounting. That was a 247% increase for their business. And restaurants have a notoriously low profit margin. So we never want to talk about discounting. We always want to talk about strategic pricing. I'm actually going to skip that one, because market dominating position is even better than strategic pricing. That one takes a little bit longer to dive into, but a market dominating position is basically what sets you apart from everybody else. Think about Domino's. Does Domino's have the best pizza on the planet? It's like, no. And yet, when you think of pizza, they almost always still have top of mind awareness because they had such a powerful market dominating position when they came up with that branding about having it hot and ready to your door in 30 minutes or less, or it's free. And then they built their franchises around hungry college towns so that they could deliver on that promise. Now they can't even use that marketing anymore because, someone deemed it unsafe because some kids were speeding or whatever, but it was such a powerful market dominating position that everyone agrees across the board. They are not the world's best pizza, but everyone agrees across the board. They still have top of mind awareness. So you think about Netflix. They didn't just create a different messaging than their competitor, they completely took them out of the market. Blockbuster is gone. They're toast, right? And it's not like we're here to take someone out of business, but they came up with such a powerful message. They hit the pain points of their customer. What are the pain points? Back in the day, I know everyone here is old enough to remember, what are the pain points for you of going to Blockbuster? You're driving, you have the late fees, the rewinding back in the day. Even when we got to DVDs, even without rewinding, still the late fees, right? So Netflix says, you don't even need to drive to the store. We'll mail these DVDs to you and you can keep them as long as you want. That was such powerful marketing that they took the competitor completely out of business. So if we came up with a market dominating position, say a real estate agent, everybody knows, like here in Utah, there's 18,000 of them. So statistically, there's 4 to every person. Every person knows 4 real estate agents statistically in the state of Utah. So if you show up to a networking event and Bob says, hey, I buy and sell homes, let me know if you know anyone that needs me. Gone. I'm going to call my brother's, sister's, aunt's, uncle's, dog's wife before I'm going to call Bob because I have some sort of connection. But if Bob came to the networking meeting saying, I am Bob and I specialize in helping homeowners buy homes larger than they thought that they could afford. Suddenly I'm listening. Suddenly I remember. So we come up with a positioning that sets Bob apart, and then we develop a compelling offer that starts to sell people into that. We want to enter the mind. How much time have I got? Oh, only 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to speed really fast through this last one. Enter the mind of the customer instead of what you like, not the message that you think you want to get across about yourself, that you buy or sell homes or that you've been doing landscaping for 20 years. What does your customer think about? So this one's a really good example of that. And then I'll skip ahead to the end really quick. But we had a doctor that was doing this mommy makeover, and his ad campaign was targeting women ages 30 to 45 with 2 or more kids. He was spending $6,000 a month on pay-per-click on Facebook, and it was bringing in 35 leads, but he had no market dominating position. It was just, hey, I sell mommy makeovers. And his ad said, nurture the body that will provoke true envy. Any ladies on here worried about envy after you've had a couple of kids? Lisa's laughing. I'm like, yeah, that's the last thing on my mind after I've had 6 kids. No one's going to envy my body. And all he had was a phone number. So envy, mommy makeover, phone number, 0 conversion on that ad. So what we do is switch it to, want the body you had before you had kids? Yes, I do. That's more enticing. 1,143% lead increase. Then instead of just a random phone number, because only 1% of buyers are now ready. The rest of them need nurtured. They want more information, especially if they were never thinking about a mommy makeover before. So we give them a free report and we start to educate them with a drip campaign. This previous conversion rate was 0. Opt-in rate is now 67. Patient conversion rate went up 12%. The new ad generated 400 prospects per month and additional 600,000 in monthly revenue. So this profit impact was 1,100%. Okay, I'm skipping to the end here so we can wrap that up. I do want to talk about joint ventures, so everyone should call me afterwards. So profit impact. So remember how I talked about how you could double your business, double your profits by the end of the year if you only got a 1.4% increase in each one of those areas. Well, the restaurant increased by 37%. We have a builder that increased in 73%. All of the and the restaurant, or sorry, the cosmetic surgeon, 1100%. Each of them only using just one of those 12 strategies. You don't have to hit a home run in all categories to double your profits. Even if we only did cost cutting and increasing prices at just 5%, you would double your profits if you have at least a 10% profit margin. And so people are scared about increasing their prices. I just want to give one more quick example. Like, what's your favorite burger? Think of that. They're usually people say Crown Burger or something. It's like $8. If it went from $8 to 5% more, 8.40, is that going to stop you from buying a burger? There's no mass exodus over a 5% increase. Everyone experienced price increases. Amazon Prime, your Netflix, like all of those accounts went up well more than 5% over the last few years. Was there a mass exodus? Absolutely not, because you provide value and customer loyalty. So going over these areas, if you got 5% in each of those, you would go from 100,000 to 500,000 projected profits, not revenue, by the end of the year in just those 12 weeks. Usually we get at least 10 to 15% or more. So if you want to meet with me and my team, we actually have a proprietary software that will develop some of these custom strategies for you and your business. We'll print out this report. And even with this free report, I had a client who decided not to work with my team and still made $100,000 extra this year from the free 3 strategies that we sent him in his report after our 45-minute meeting. I think you probably don't need to do the QR code because Lisa, you already sent this to everyone, right?
Yeah, I think we have, I'm not sure if it's that, I think it is that one, but do it, take a screenshot just in case. But if you did opt in to the challenge, you also have it in your portal as well, a link
Okay.
to Debbie's free gift. And Debbie, this is so there I can see that we've only hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of, what your team does. And one thing I wanted to touch on briefly is your you and Sean and your collaboration, because I think there's really something powerful when we talk about finding the right people to lock arms with in obviously life for sure, but business, and how you guys, how you complement one another, and how you might advise others when it is, time to seek strategic partnerships. How do you decide what those qualities are that you look for,
That's a fantastic question. I go over that in detail in that florist example, but I have my own strategic alliances because I don't do it's not a done for you program. My team is strategists. And so when people are in this startup phase, they often do, want to learn and do some of these things for themselves because it is more cost effective at that stage. But when you are at a certain level, it is cheaper and easier, more efficient to hire someone to do these things. So I do have strategic partners, Tax Hive being one of them. They guarantee to save business owners 10,000 or more on their taxes, or they pay you $100 to meet with them. And so again, it's about forming alliances, first of all, that have the same target market as you, which is so much more strategic than BNI. BNI, you pay to join, you get
Oh, I know
random
it.
partners. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay if you're starting up and you need to learn about referrals and relationships, but you can really build your own system that's a lot more profitable. You find people that have the same target market, and then you build a strategic alliance to where you guys can come up, like with our florist, we had her build a report, the 8 things to avoid when you're getting married, and the wedding planner and the cake decorator and the jeweler. They all contribute and then they all distribute. And so then they're all building out their businesses and they pay each other anywhere from 10 to 30%. So I get referrals from Tax Hive and I get paid for them, but vice versa as well. We don't like if you'll pay your referral partners, that's what an actual joint venture is. You're setting up a legal contract to pay each other for those. I guarantee your partners will send you more if you're paying them to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's really important also to, make sure that not only are you serving the same community, but you're also morally aligned. I remember my D's in corporate. One of the things I still have a little PTSD around is I was being asked more and more to kind of cross some moral boundaries that I just was not, prepared to do anymore, and it's one of the things I love about entrepreneurship is you are defining your moral code. You are defining that in your business. Who you choose to do business with gets to be part of that, right?
Well, and
And
your reputation is on the line. If you
yeah,
don't make sure that everything is legal, moral, and ethical within them as a person and in their business, because I also learned that the hard way. I sent a bunch of referrals early on to a partner who didn't follow through with any of the promises. And this was a
right,
$6,000 price point. I felt so responsible that I went back and I fixed and made good on every promise that he promised them because it
hmm,
was my reputation.
yeah, yeah. How much have mentors meant for you in your success and your growth in your business?
100%. It has been proven every single research out there that you do on getting a coach, a mentor, or bare minimum, like an accountability partner, your success rate goes up, depending on the study, anywhere from 54 to 87%. Your success rate goes up by having a professional coach or mentor or accountability partner. If you're not at that level where you can hire someone, you can be strategic. Like, obviously, I came from somewhere where I had absolutely nothing. So I started out with libraries and free podcasts and like a friend that I was living with that didn't want me and six kids to live in their basement forever, obviously. So I
Right,
say, okay,
right,
here's my goal. Here's what I'm going to do. What can we do to get me out of your basement faster? So
right,
that's how
right.
I got started. But you can find that at any level. Don't look for excuses and challenges. Look for opportunities and solutions. There is a way at every level and at every stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, this has been brilliant. I'm so excited we got to see a taste and see of what your organization is doing and what your heart is leading you to do in serving your community, Debbie. Make sure, friends, I tell you, I want to share with you briefly, one of my mentors in life. Many of you have heard about Sharon Lecter. She is, for me, just one of the people that when I met Sharon, when I first saw her speak, I thought, I want to be like her when I grow up. I loved her passion for raising the women's financial IQ, especially women. Um, and I want to just invite you, friends. Remember, the action plan for today is to help you feel more equipped in your kingdom wealth building, we like to call it. And one of the things that I find is that many women, especially, are not prepared for this massive responsibility that we have coming. Debbie, it's funny that you mentioned real estate. How many of you have met people that, they're going to start a side business? They're going to go get their real estate license, right? How many of you know very, very part-time real estate agents, right? And what's crazy about it, when you think about it, if you were in a room of 100 people, Debbie, I know you're hosting a live event this week. You probably will have 7,500 people there. How many of them would you say are ready to buy a house today? Right?
With home prices and interest rates, probably less than 5% of that room. So it would take
right.
mentors and educators to get them there. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So isn't it funny but that's the go-to idea that people have, right? I'm going to get my real estate license. I want to share with you, the license that I hold, for example. I studied for 10 hours. I got a 60%. Here in California, we have pretty low standards, fortunately, for the credentials that we hold. It doesn't mean that that's not certainly where we learn what we do. We learn what we do when we sit down kneecap to kneecap with families and help them implement their own wealth formula. But isn't it crazy that in the state of California alone, there's 500,000 realtors? Debbie, you thought you had a lot. There's 500,000 in California alone. And just to your point, very few people are actually ready to buy a house. And yet, in that same room of 100, how many families would you say need help with their finances? They have a debt crisis that they're in. Perhaps they need better health insurance. Maybe they need some tax strategy in their life, right? These are all things that I would say 90% of the room probably needs at least one of those things. So are you prepared, friends, for this wealth transfer that's happening? One of the reasons that I love also how I work with my partners is people, for example, like Scott. So Scott, I'm going to bring you to the stage now, my friend, and we're going to share a little bit about our partnership. Debbie, thank you so much, my dear, for your brilliance. And let's make sure you and let me know when you're coming in August. Let's make sure we get some time together and talk more strategically about how we can truly partner together. I believe we're called to do that. Wait, jazz hands for Debbie, everybody. Thank you for joining us, my dear. I so appreciate you.